Hi there, folks. This is episode 213. It's our Friday roundtable. We've got a great panel here. We've got some great WordPress news stories, topic stories, and our main subject is how to speed up your development. I think it's going to be a great show. We've already had a great pre-show discussion, and I think it's going to be great. So I'm going to let my panel introduce themselves, and ladies first. Go on, Sally, you introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Sally Getch. My WordPress consulting business is WP Fangirl. My cat has appeared just in time to be introduced. And the East Bay WordPress meetup that I'm organizer of is preparing to do a contributor day in August.
Oh, sounds great. Yeah, fair. Right. I'm going to let Mendel introduce himself. He's already had a rough day, folks. He's been on the Facebook. Introduce yourself, Mendel.
Sorry, Adam. I was just making fun of you. He was having internet problems earlier. I'm Mendel. I'm on a gigabit internet connection. And I work at.
You're a big daddy then.
Well, I've been called things like that. I work at GoDaddy, and I do. I'm just. Let's be honest. I'm just a misfit. So there you go.
I don't think so. But he's had a bit already. I told him, just keep off those Facebook panels, whatever he's doing on Facebook. Just keep off it.
Yeah, Adam, the Cookie Monster forum on Facebook was pretty rough.
Yeah.
I was using anyway. It's weird, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it sounds it. Yeah. Adam, would like to introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Adam from WP Crafter. Hopefully you can hear this. I was having some internet issues a moment ago, but you can find me at WPCrafter.com. I make WordPress videos for non-techies, reviews that are actually honest and non-paid for, and stuff like that, tutorial videos. So go check it out.
Yeah, he's been knocking them out, folks. I've been watching some of them myself.
Making some enemies. Making lots of enemies.
There we go. Anyways. There you go. Keep at it. John, would like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure thing. And right before I do, I want to tell Adam, if you're not making enemies, you're not trying hard enough. So good job. Good job, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm John Locke. My business is Lockdown Design, providing SEO and custom WordPress theme development for mid-sized companies. You can find my website, Lockdown Design. And my co-host to the left, Jonathan Denwood. How do we introduce yourself?
I think you're going to say find me, but no, that's at the end, John. That's at the end, John.
Yeah.
Well, I am the founder of WP-Tonic. We're a maintenance support company, and also I'm the co-host of this podcast. So I think we'll start off with a couple quickie stories. One from Blog Aid website, and it's WordPress 4.8 text widget meltdown. I think I asked John to start off on this one. What did you think of this one, John?
Yeah, so definitely there have been some people that upgraded to WordPress 4.8, and they found that say if they were using widgets to execute code or short codes or things like that, that it may have broken. So be aware that this is a known bug in WordPress at the moment. It will be fixed in 4.8.1, and that's scheduled to be released at the beginning of August. But in the meantime, what you can do to fix your, if you have stuff that's in your text widgets and you need it to go back to normal for the time being, you can use a plugin called Classic Text Widget. But keep in mind that you're going to have to meticulously copy all your widget stuff over from your previous site. So, make sure you have it all kind of copied and put in a safe place before you install this plugin. But that'll be a temporary fix until they get it fixed in WordPress.
Yeah, it's caused a few problems with some of our clients, but we normally which is a little bit controversial because some people will disagree with me here because some say it slows the site down a little bit, is that we mostly got people using Black Studio Tiny MCE. But we'll probably get caught out with all these changes with the editor, so we'll probably get hit as well.
Yeah, I think the problem is not so much people who are using it for, like, you know, formatted text and that kind of thing, but people have put codes in there, whether they're embed codes, or sometimes I saw it happen where I had some font awesome stuff in there, and the weird thing was, you know, when I first opened the text widget, it didn't show, and then I saved the text widget, and then it came back. It was quite peculiar. So, you know, although I haven't had any disasters happen, you know, you might find that something has disappeared or needs to be resaved or needs to be re-entered, and so yeah, you might need to put the classic text widget in for that kind of thing. And I can't remember whether we have any kind of a, you know, code widget or not that's been added. I don't think we have, though. So
no, that's quite odd in a way, really, isn't it? But
well, I can see why they would avoid encouraging people to put code into the widgets, because, you know, who knows what code it is. The kinds of things people usually paste in are embed codes of some kind for forms, but you know. However, I mean, it's always been possible to put code in a text widget. So if you knew that, you know, you could theoretically screw your site up by putting some bad code in there.
And this is a perfect example of, if you are building websites for people, why you really need to have established some form of like a care plan, because here's just a seemingly normal WordPress update to 4.8. It's not like to 5. It's not this massive update, and it's causing some problems. And if your clients, or if you have your own, it's that whole misnomer of WordPress being easy. You know, something happens like this, something's broken, someone doesn't know what the heck's going on, and then they got to go and find someone. If you build the website, that's why you got to really have these care plans available, or something like that, or have a go-to expert like WP-Tonic, you know, to resolve these issues, so that you do the care plans.
This is part of the reason it's worth paying for maintenance, whether you're paying your regular developer or you're paying a third party like WP-Tonic, which I personally prefer to encourage people to, and they somehow are not interested, because, well, we know you already. Yeah, you know how boring I find maintenance?
Well, it's difficult.
Or use a tool, or
sorry, go on.
Oh, I was saying, or use one of those tools. I know some hosts, I don't know if GoDaddy does this, Mendel, but to have one of those hosts that have a service, so when you update, it checks to see if anything looks different. It takes a snapshot before, does the update, then takes a snapshot, so you even know that this is going on, because I guarantee there's probably a ton of websites, they don't even know that they have this problem.
Right. One thing that I have started to do, even though I am a longtime fan of Backup Buddy, and particularly like it for doing migrations, I've started to put Updraft Plus Premium on most of my sites, because it makes an automatic backup before every update. So whenever you update, if something breaks, you have a thing to revert to immediately.
So I think there are varying degrees of opportunistic screenshot backup tools, but the two best things I think anybody can do is, number one, a service like Manage WP or Main WP or Infinite WP, or there are a million something WPs out there. I'm partial to Manage WP because they're part of GoDaddy, but
well, they're also awesome and have a really nice interface.
Yeah, and then the other thing is, strangely, I don't know if y'all know this, but cPanel has an option when you spin up a new site. One of my sites is on a VPS with cPanel. And when you spin up the new site, it asks you whether or not you want to have it back up before any automatic updates. And then cPanel will actually automatically update your site and create a backup if there's an error or an issue you can roll back, and I think it actually might, in some cases, do it automatically if the site doesn't resolve afterwards. So something to keep in mind.
That's a great point, actually. I tend to, but we do set that as we're pretty anal apart from my own website. Apart from my own website, which I'm not. Everybody else is. We're pretty anal about multiple backups at different time periods and where we store them, because you can't have enough. If you're in our game, you can't have enough backups. You just can't. So we're a bit backup crazy. But watch out for that, folks. I think we've covered that. And on to another story, which was a survey about hosting. And basically everybody's happy about hosting. I'm going to let Sally start this one again. What did you think of that?
Right. So I read this, and they were talking about basically, you know, the big hosts, the you know, the GoDaddy, Bluehost, HostGator, and the sort of surprise results that people were mostly quite happy with these hosts. And the difference in this, you know, I was somewhat surprised at these results, is that a lot of the hosting surveys that are done out there mostly survey developers. Yeah. And the developers tend to all come back saying they prefer the, you know, the higher priced hosting that optimizes specifically for WordPress. And most of the people surveyed in this were fairly new to WordPress and to having a website. And so they didn't really have anything to compare it to, but they were not, you know, intrinsically unhappy with their experience. And, you know, they had what, you know, 736 people comment on GoDaddy. Out of GoDaddy's entire millions of...
that was GoDaddy.
No, actually, and it wasn't even the usual person who interrupts me. I keep meaning to go and tell Comcast to like not let my phone ring, but between, you know, 9 and 10:30. But
it's something very persistently that rings you during this show, isn't it, Sally? It's almost every week.
Almost every week, yes. And the thing is, I don't get that many phone calls.
You should let them join the show actually as a panelist.
Yeah, no,
right.
It wouldn't be interesting to most of the people who phone me. So I forget what I was saying. Oh yes, that, you know, 736 people is not a large sample of GoDaddy's customers, but you know, I think that this kind of goes back to what Matt said about the hosts that were listed on WordPress.org. That, well, there, you know, the Bluehost was on there, and people, you know, bash them all the time, and, you know, me included. I have some clients on there and I'm not a fan, though they did at least start rolling out free SSL for WordPress sites, but that, you know, there are many happy customers on these hosts, and I suppose that's true. It's not going to change, you know, my opinion of what I like and don't. But on the other hand, if people are happy with what they have, I'm not going to try and persuade them to go elsewhere.
Well, you know, we're in a kind of bit of a bubble, aren't we? Because we're you know, but a lot of people, if that, you know, the major hosting providers weren't satisfying their clientele to a certain degree, they wouldn't be in business, would they? So, what did you think of this, Mendel?
Oh, I'm so happy you asked. Yeah, so.
Give us your unbiased opinion.
I will actually. So it's super easy to hate on GoDaddy and Bluehost and insert large host here. And by the way, as hosts start getting bigger, it's easier to hate on them too, right? Or as they have technology issues that they need to address as they grow. It happens with every single host. Here's what I'll say. So Sally's not going to say it because she's super nice, but I'm going to bring it up anyway, which is crazy of me. But she was saying, hey, I get frustrated because their GoDaddy sometimes has a like slow dashboard or annoying dashboard or something like that. And the reality is, a company like as a developer, a lot of people look at what's going on at a host with all of the frustrations. Those are the things they often remember. And a lot of there are a lot of legacy systems out there, right? And unfortunately, when a customer gets to a web developer, a web designer, a lot of the times they're on a legacy system, and so it creates frustration. So all I would say is, you know, there's millions and millions and millions of customers on larger hosts. I know it may have seemed surprising that GoDaddy was on that list of good hosts, but the reality is the changes have been okay. That's not unbiased, but the changes at the company have really helped technology wise and brand wise and stuff like that. So I think the majority of people that do business with GoDaddy and with other hosts, right? If you're HostGator or DreamHost or Bluehost or Flywheel or WP Engine or SiteGround or whoever, like people that do business with all of those hosts like them for particular reasons, and sometimes there are some troublesome things. All I'll say is, if you are the type of person that goes on to Twitter, on to Facebook, on to Instagram, wherever you go, and you yell as loud as you can, I understand that you're frustrated about something, but generally in the world, people are less likely to be excited about helping you if you're mean, right? Or if you're a jerk. Which is probably why I brought up Sally, because she's like the nicest person I know. So
right. Well, yes, and I was mean to Mendel, but I am actually polite and gracious to support staff.
No, but
I phone them.
I wasn't saying that about you, but it just in general, you know, like if you're experiencing some issues, then talk to somebody about it. But don't like go and yell with a megaphone, because then you know, reactionary stuff isn't sustainable, right? Like somebody's just gonna do what they can do to get you to stop yelling and fix your problem. But what I really want is to actually like fix a systemic issue, right? And so that comes from having a reasonable and reasoned conversation. So that's my opinion on the matter.
Yeah, and I think I don't want to speak for you, Mendel, but I also think you're suggesting that there's legacy systems, there's more choice in the GoDaddy internal environment than most people realise, and with you and your team, you're seeking to upgrade the choices that customers will be having offered to them in the GoDaddy environment. Would that be about right?
Yeah, I mean, a great example. I run a hiking site with 12,000 trail guides on it right now. It's a WordPress site, uses a decent amount of resources. I don't have that on shared hosting. There's no way that it could be on shared hosting. Our hosting isn't, like, shared hosting isn't designed for that use case. So it's on a GoDaddy VPS. It hums like a hummingbird. Yeah, I think it's choosing the right technology in all cases, right? And GoDaddy's not the right solution 100% of the time. Neither are other providers. Sometimes, you know, your site has unique requirements. You need to go host with Amazon or Pagely or whatever, right? So I think it's I think too often when I was a developer developing sites for clients, I would leave them in a particular place, or I would have an allergic reaction to where they were and ask them to move just cause. And really now, with the perspective of working for a host, I think a lot of clients are mismatched on technology. And so getting them to the right technology and asking the right questions to your host is super, super, super important. So.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
and the more complex your site is, the more hosting resources you're going to need. And if you need those things, you do need to pay for them. And I think, you know, part of what clients are looking for when they don't know better is what's cheap. And what's cheap is not going to be, you know, the client site I'm working on now, she's about to add an LMS and WooCommerce. And it's like, yeah, well, you know, your site has been performing pretty well because it's a, you know, because it's a simple site. We might need a bigger engine to pull this trailer, you know, as we add the extra functionality, and therefore you're probably going to have to pay more for hosting.
Surely, Joe. Great conversation. I think we'll move on to probably is going to be our final story, but it's a pretty big one. Well, interesting. Well, I love the title. Inside WordPress org, theme review team, money abuse and inconsistent leadership. It's like the good, the bad, and the ugly, isn't it? I'm going to Adam lead on this one. What did you think of this particular saga article post, Adam?
Yeah, well, actually, I came across this article because of John's Twitter feed, Lockdown Design's Twitter feed. I saw the link, or I saw your comment on it. I clicked through. And then what really got me interested in this article is they're talking about two themes that I'm very familiar with, and I talked to the developers and I have a little input in, and that was, it talks about Ocean WP and it talked about the Astra theme. So I know it's actually funny. The Astra theme, I know with the referenced screenshot in the article was about the fact that there was another theme named Astra that had like no installs. It was like 4 or 5 years old, and it's starting to get hard to pick a name for your theme unless you want some crazy long name. And so that whole issue with Slack, I remember Sujay, he's the guy that made the theme. He came and he contacted me afterwards. He's like, oh my gosh, there's all this WP drama going on Slack right now over my theme. And he was telling me all about it. So basically, there are a lot of problems with the whole, it's like a lose-lose if you're on that theme review team, right? So about 6 months ago, what was the complaint? It takes a year to get my theme in the repository. And so they fixed that. Now you can get a theme in a lot quicker. Now the big argument is, oh, you know, if you know, these guys are getting special treatment and these guys are getting special treatment, and the special treatment boils down to what is the slug. So when you install a theme and it puts that theme and the theme files in the WP themes directory, and there's what's called a slug, that's the folder name. And the main problem has to do with a theme called Total. Now there's a theme called Total for sale on ThemeForest that is on probably about 40,000 websites. And so a person created a theme, called it Total, submitted it to the WordPress repository and got it that same slug. So the repository has this issue where it tries to decide what's a popular theme, and it's a very basic how it does this, and it's not advanced at all, and it basically is active installs. So all of the ThemeForest active installs went with the free theme, and it put it on the top of the popular list. And so there's this issue of how much money will a theme make if it's free but on the popular list, and then there's a paid upgrade, and that's where the whole problem starts. I think the best solution is to remove the popular option in the WordPress theme repository and on the WordPress website. That's the only solution, is to just completely remove that, because there's all this infighting. I would hate to be a volunteer on that theme review team, because you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. And you know, it just seems they don't have the tools. So the issue is, if I come up with a theme, how the heck am I supposed to know if that same slug is being used by some other theme? There's no tool given to theme developers to see if a slug is taken before they create their theme and release it. And the problem lies with the second issue in the article was the gaming of the fact that it wasn't like the nefarious one of using someone else's slug. It was, while you release a theme, get a lot of active installs, and then you push it into the repository to get on that popular list. But every theme that they listed that he said did that, and it's a bunch of bull crap. All the themes he listed that do that, because these are themes that they can't sit around and wait for the theme to be approved before they try to get active users. So if it takes 6 months to get your theme in there, are you supposed to just sit there and not market or talk about this thing you've spent hours on? No, you've got to start marketing it. So I know with the Astra theme, he just sent an email out, say, hey, do you want to check out my theme? It's coming out. And 2,000 people installed and activated it. So on day one, when it hit the repo, it was on the popular list because it had all these active installs. But it wasn't for some nefarious reason. And the same thing with Ocean WP. That took 6 months to get approved. So he's not sitting there waiting and hoping that, you know, it gets approved and then he's going to move forward with it. He moved forward anyway with it until it got in there. So there's a lot of problems with this article, but I think to sum it up, they got to just, you know, if everyone's going to whine and complain about this popular list, I think they should just get rid of the popular list and let people find themes on the merit of the themes.
Yeah. Fantastic. I loved it, Adam. What did you think, John?
Yeah, I mean, that was inspired, but my big takeaways from this article is, you know, it's all fun and games until money's on the line. And a lot of people put the whole incentive for putting free themes in the repo is to upsell the pro version of the theme. And so this is a way to it's a kind of a backdoor way to make money. But I mean, you look at what happened with Zara Flight, and you know, when they were taken off the theme directory for a while, it caused them a big hit, and they're still kind of recovering from it. My big takeaway is there needs to be some sort of structure in here or some sort of policy that's followed every time. It's not so much a policy, it's the inconsistency of like how things are applied. Because I think the theme author, he did a little experiment where he created a theme where it had a name conflict, and then where an existing theme already had that name, he put it in the repo, and then whoever was above him on the food chain said, no, you can't do that. And then they closed the ticket, and then he said, okay, I'm going to reopen these 2 tickets that I've told you guys about, where there's 2 themes that they're named after these commercial themes. And so as a reward for that, they didn't appreciate that. So they demoted him and decommissioned him and all that. And so, you know, I guess the lesson here is they're just, I get it. It's a lot of volunteer work. I mean, it's volunteers that make the theme review team work, but let's just have some policies that are consistent, or, you know, as Adam said, just get rid of the popular tab altogether, because obviously, like, you know, by attaching, you know, financial incentives to it, you know, and that's just the reality of it. People are going to try and game the system. And so we need to have some sort of rules. That's my thoughts.
Yeah. Mendel, what did you think of the article? What's been said?
It's been a problem for a while. We're all volunteering humans that are trying to make it work, and it's probably worth some additional scrutiny. If other people support the fact that there's an issue with the algorithm, and there's an issue with the way things are being surfaced, or things can be gamed, then I think the good alternative is probably to remove that listing temporarily, right? That the algorithm produces, and decide on a quote unquote fairer algorithm. But again, it's kind of the same theme each week when there's some sort of WP drama. It's all volunteers. So whether it's this or the customizer debacle or whatever, right? Or Gutenberg or whatever. Like they're all it's all the same thing, right? There's an issue. People voice their opinion. Somebody should take notice. Whoever's built that functionality, or whoever's in charge of it, and then if it really is something where it's creating unfair commerce, then in that case it might be good to take it offline. Although, like, just remember that might also hurt people that are right now making a living and feeding their children with this money as well. So, like, you know, think about that too. I think it would probably make people happy just knowing somebody is concerned, taking a look, and is looking at really a thoughtful way in making a change. So yeah.
Oh,
let me just say one thing. I know I'm a little chatty on this issue. There's another theme called Generate Press in the repo, and it's one of the older themes. Not old and outdated, but it's like awesome theme. But it's because it's older, he's not in that popular list. The guy's name's Tom, making a killing because he's actually marketing it socially. You know, the guy's making a lot of money. He's not relying upon that popular list. He's not being lazy about his theme. He's out there hustling. And the same reason why Hestia is in that top list, which is Theme.io, which is the same guys that did Zara Flight. The reason that's in the top isn't because of any of these things. It's because they're putting the work in outside of that. You know, of course, there is some net benefit too. But, you know, if they did put that on pause, it would put people in check that are just hoping to make a quick buck, that, you know, you got to put a little effort in, have a good theme, and get people talking about it or marketing it outside of just that one list.
Great. What do you think, Sally?
I think that if you get rid of the popular list, there will be more people complaining louder. You know, that it is kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. I think the theme review team is trying to improve its processes, but it's clear they still have a ways to go. And the answers are not necessarily going to be easy or obvious, because pretty much any decision you make is going to affect someone. And, you know, there are people who put free themes in the repo who are not trying to, you know, upsell to a commercial theme, and this issue may not matter so much to them. But it obviously does matter to people who are, you know, the reason they've gone through all the hoops necessary to get their theme approved is because it will get it exposed and bring them business. And when you have as many themes as are in the repo, getting them, you know, showing them to people is tough. So yeah, you know, is there a better way to determine active installs? I mean, the thing is, you could theoretically enforce unique slug names within the repo, but you can't necessarily enforce unique, you know, theme folder names for themes that are not in the repo. And depending on, you know, how things are being checked, that algorithm is just going to get confused. So, you know, they may need some more thorough way to run that algorithm to make sure it's like also checking the, like, you know, the theme developer URI or something in the style sheet, so that they know it's actually the installs of the correct theme with that name. So but people will complain no matter what you do. That I think is the theme of today's show so far.
Yeah, my thoughts about this is, I have no idea why they're getting involved in all this, really, in a way, the review team. I see the review team around quality of code and security. Does the code of the theme meet the specification, you know, the requirements that have been set forth about code quality, and that it's not a security threat? I think everything else, they should keep clear of it. If a theme developer's done well on Theme Forest and wants to use the same name, let him at it, because as far as I'm concerned, it's just shown that the theme was really popular on Theme Forest. That might be a good sign that people actually want it. I really think they want to keep away from all the trying to be gatekeepers of a commercial environment. because it will never work, because people will always, when it's money involved, people will always find ways of trying to manipulate the system. Because money is involved, and that's human nature to some degree. The other thing is, it goes back 5 years ago when I was trying to become a naturalized American citizen, and I was dealing with the people at Homeland Security in Reno who didn't appreciate some of my English humour, and so I gave up on that, because that wasn't going to work with them. And they just didn't seem to answer my letters. But then I got my first meeting, and a very nice American immigration officer invited me into her office, and the office was just filled with case notes. And I said, how many cases have you in this room? She said, I have over 500, Jonathan. And then I realised that I wasn't going to get really fantastic service here. I wasn't going to get my letters answered really that quickly, because they don't have the resources, because each immigration officer's got 500 cases plus, and it's really important for me, my case, but it's just one of 500 for that poor lady. So, you know, what I want ain't gonna happen. And when I was listening to all this, it just kind of think it's just the same situation. For the theme developer, it's really, 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 really important. And it, you know, there could be some substantial money on the line here. But for the people, the volunteers, it's just one other theme, isn't it? That's just the reality of it. It's just another theme that they're doing for free. They're getting all this crap from people, and they're not even getting paid for it. So that's not a great thing. What do you think, John? Just to finish off, do you think I was waffling there?
Yeah, I think it's time for a break.
You think I was waffling? All right then, folks. We're going to go for our break, and we'll be back with our main topic, speeding up your WordPress development. We'll be back in a minute. We're coming back, folks. We've had a really great discussion on some great WordPress news stories, and we're going to go quickly into our main topic. So I'm going to ask John got any kind of insights, tips to start off the conversation about speeding up your WordPress development?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the people on the panel will agree with this, that you know, your development process kind of evolves over time, and I think a lot of it is just, you know, evolving your setup. You know, whether that's you know, having a process like an environment that's set up, a system for developing, you know, and a lot of tools that you can use. One would be desktop server, where you can clone a type of site. Say if you have a base theme and you have a set of plugins that you install on most of your sites, you could you know, set that up as a clonable install, and that's definitely one way to you know, improve. You know, definitely it's one thing that I do in particular is I'll save like little code modules. Say if I use something on one project, I'll reuse it on another. So I have built up over time just kind of a library of different code modules that I can drop into different projects and reuse those. So.
And what text editor are you using, John?
Sublime Text.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And have you kind of modulated it with different modules and extras to your taste?
No, I keep it pretty basic. I mean, you know, as far as that, I just basically have a folder where I have, you know, different, you know, pieces of code, different themes and stuff that I've developed. And that way I can go back and reference things pretty easily, to where if I need to replicate something that I did before, I've already got it on hand. So it's
and
just
also, yeah. I don't know if you do it, but I also have a number of those bits in Text Expander, which I use on my Mac, so I can do some short codes and boom, a whole part of coding just appears. I don't know if you do that at all.
No, but I know a lot of people that do use Text Expander for different purposes, and that's definitely one purpose that you can use it for.
All right, then. On to Sally. Got any initial tips, insights about how to speed up your WordPress development, Sally?
Well, you know, I know that I need to put some better processes in place for myself. But one thing I have learned, in addition to the usefulness of keeping a snippets library, and there are some tools for storing those. It's another thing I haven't gotten around to doing, but I can usually remember, oh, I just use that in X site. You know, I'll go there and see what I did. But the really important thing is to speed up your development is all the stuff you do before you start writing code.
Right.
All of the, you know, the discovery process and the functional spec and that kind of thing that you do before you start writing code. Because if you're not sure what you're creating, it's hard to create it efficiently. And then you may end up having to rip out a bunch of stuff and redo it if you weren't clear on what the client wanted, or the client wasn't clear on what you were planning to do, or the client has changed their mind, which does happen. But that, you know, for instance, you know, one of the reasons you want to do a content audit, if they have content already, whether it's on a website or they have stuff that they know they're going to put on the website, is so you know, okay, I need to create, you know, these kinds of custom post types and these kinds of custom taxonomies. And I, you know, now I know them all. I can build them all into one, you know, post type and taxonomy plugin. Or, you know, in some cases, well, I know they're going to want events, or I know they're going to want testimonials, and I'm going to use a different, you know, I'm going to use a plugin for those things. But the more you know in advance about what you're doing, the faster it will be to actually do it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, actually. Thanks for that, Sally. Mendel, you know, I'm a little bit less involved in coding now, but like Jackie and probably yourself, you know, you got modern development flows using SAS, compiling the code, pushing it up, Git. How do they figure into a cycle of making you your development quicker?
Who are you asking that question to?
To you, Mendel.
Oh, to me. Yeah. I don't use them.
Right.
I'm a jerk. I'm a cowboy coder. Through and through. Nothing I work on anymore is so mission critical that if it goes down for a second, it's not going to cause, or it's going to cause a big problem. I actually just divorced myself from my last client.
All right.
About 2 months ago.
Right.
I've been trying to shake him for a while, but he just kind of loved the work that I did. I have a lineup of tools that I think if you use them, it'll be life-changing. Beaver Builder and Beaver Themer. That way you can handle some of the previewing of stuff without actually deploying it or publishing it. Desktop server, I think somebody else brought that up, but really great tool to work locally. A lot of devs like to do that still. Like stuff like Manage WP, right? Something to manage user roles, to keep updates rolling with your customers. And then the last is kind of on the back end client management side, like client management tool, like shameless plug GoDaddy Pro, because of the account delegation, right? So you can buy domains on other people's behalf instead of having them give your password. So I think those are probably, like, if you're not interested in getting into the code and you know, compiling CSS and stuff like that, then do it that way. On the development side, by the way, I've heard that that Pantheon is actually pretty interesting with the way, if you're really into hardcore standards, and you're just like, I want the system to slap me on the wrist and not let me do things when they're not proper, like it's not proper development workflow. That's things like that can help to kind of wrangle your process. So.
Oh yeah, they got some great technology. We did have the actual CEO of Pantheon on the show a few months ago. Great guy, and we had a great discussion, didn't we, John?
Yeah. Sorry, as I'm. Yeah, we definitely did. Yeah, go back and check that episode.
Yeah. So, Adam, what kind of workflows and any kind of tips, insights you got for people looking to develop their first websites, maybe as a consultant or initial developer?
Yeah, well, I think the best first piece of advice is to use the same stuff on all your projects. So don't go and use 10 different themes and you get a new client and you try to get the perfect theme that kind of meets their needs, because that's just going to cost you so much in time, because now you're constantly going through a learning curve. If you just stick to a standard set of tools, you're going to be so much more ahead of the game. And also, I'm a big fan of page builders. So what's nice about, say, Elementor or Beaver Builder, let's just talk about Beaver Builder, is you can save these things that or these sections or rows, as they call them. You can save these and reuse them over and over. Or together what you think is the to action section. You can save that, and then it's just stitching all these things together. You can crank out your basic kind of websites really, really easy. I think that's great. I personally am a big fan of Local by Flywheel. It's a free computer program. You can use it on a Mac or a PC. It allows you to install WordPress on your local machine, but it has a really neat feature. It's on your machine, right? So your client can't get in to see it, but it has a little feature where it will create a public link. You can email that to your client and then they can take a look at the website. That is a great tool. And you can also, I think John was talking about this, you can create blueprints. So you can have your theme you use, your plugins, everything, your base configuration created as a blueprint, and you can create new sites off this blueprint. It's such a huge, huge time saver. And the last thing, I'm showing my age here, I totally forgot what it was. Huh. those are some pretty good tips right there.
That's great. Anyways. It's great stuff. Thanks for that. It's interesting because if obviously one of our panelists, Jackie, she's a great SaaS, but also, on this panel, I would say that almost all the people on this panel don't use SaaS. I think it's really decision making, about what kind of development you're doing. What are you, a kind of individual freelance developer, or are you going to be working in a very structured team environment? And that will probably lead to you making decisions about using SaaS and some of the other terms that I used. Obviously compiling will save you some time, but then you got the whole point, do you want to go down that road? So it's quite interesting, all this. Would you agree with that, John? Are you there, John? You're not muted, are you?
Yeah, preprocessors, compilers, all those things are tools that you can use to make creating sites quicker. So definitely there's a lot of tools out there at hand. So,
but there's a learning curve, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. Any new technology, any new system that you're implementing, you have to get familiar with. So.
Yeah, I mean, Adam's choice about, finding the tools you like and sticking to them is a very sensible one. I used Beaver Builder on a site for the first time in a couple of years this past week, and it was great, but there was a learning curve. I mean, it's pretty straightforward to use, but there was still about an hour of just getting familiar with it. You know, and then another hour of running around chasing what turned out to be a bug in the child theme I was using, where it wouldn't work if you switched it to a static page, static home page. But which, you know, was not Beaver Builder's fault, but it's like, yeah, you're going to run into some things the first time you use anything. And so there are things that will save you time, but only after you've put in the time to get to know how to use them. And sometimes it's that first bit of time you have to put in that can be a barrier to switching, you know, to something that would be more efficient than what you're already doing, but you know how to do what you're already doing.
I think. Oh, sorry, go on, Adam.
Sorry. I was going to say, I remember that last bit of information that I wanted to say. If you're building websites for clients or anything design work for clients, I think the thing that takes up the most time is the client communication and the back and forth. And there's a great tool. I think it's projecthuddle.io. It's actually a WordPress plugin. You install it on your website, so you could install WordPress on a subdomain, maybe like projects.whatever your domain name.com. And then you just, when you're developing a website for someone, you just load it up in there and you can send them a link. And then when they click on that link to look at your website, they can mock it up in their web browser. They can also on an image and then click and make a note saying, I don't like this image. Can you use this image instead? Or click on some text. I don't like this text. Can you do it instead? And then you can delegate those tasks off. You could do it. It's a real structured, organized way. And it's like dirt cheap. It's only like 80 or 90 bucks for a year of streamlining the communication. So you're not on the phone all the time. Cause that's where all your time goes, is talking on the phone. Cause you got to ask about the kids or you're a jerk, you know? This way you can, you know, get around all that.
I think that's a great tool, and I think also using Zoom and being able to video conversations and share notes, that helps. But that's a great tool. What I was going to ask Sally, so of the panel, I think you're the only real hardcore Genesis developer. How do you think, on reflection, how that's helped you streamline your coding?
Well, you know, I remember the first time I looked at a Genesis theme file, you know, in a child theme, and all it said was Genesis. I'm like, WTF. But once you get to know it, you know, and I think this is not, you know, it's not exclusively true of Genesis. It's true of any framework or any other tool that you're using. Once you're familiar with it, the fact that you know where all the hooks are and how to manipulate the data that way, and that you can, you know, add a little conditional into a custom functions file rather than having to create a whole new template, can make things very efficient. But it is, you know, again, first you have to learn the framework. And for somebody just starting, that may or may not be helpful. Certainly for somebody who's not going to be working as a developer, building a lot of sites for clients where having that additional code library is going to be useful, that may not be worth it to you. Now, many of the child themes can be used as they are by clients who really never even see the framework, and the fact that they're child themes means that when the main Genesis framework is updated, you know, it's not going to break anything in your child theme. You know, so I like it, and I, you know, continue to like using it, and the fact that there's a, you know, large group of other people who do it and who are available for support and to ask questions too, and so on. Those are all good things. And I think that, you know, the first time I encountered something by StudioPress was before Genesis, and I just appreciated the fact that the code was cleanly commented so that I as a pretty much newbie developer could figure out what was going on.
That's great stuff. To wrap up the show, I'm going to go through the panel and ask them if there's any kind of resources online that come to their mind that can give kind of advice about process, different technologies. I'm going to start off with John about this. So, John, is anything that comes to mind online, any kind of resources that you regularly go to that help with process?
You know, I would recommend that anyone who's looking to, you know, beef up their process and streamline some, go talk to Tanya Mork from Know the Code.
Yeah.
And yeah, she definitely has a lot of great tips for making your development and process faster and making you a more profitable developer.
And we interviewed a few weeks ago, didn't we?
Episode 200. Go check it out.
Yeah, it's got the links there. What about you, Adam? Got anything that come to mind?
Yeah, I think joining a community where there are other people trying to do the same thing that you're doing helps. And I think the best community I found online, it's a tight-knit community. It's the WP Innovator Facebook group. I think it's facebook.com/WP Innovator. That might take you there, or you could just Google it. I'm sure you'll find it. It's an amazing group of people that are developing, super helpful. You ask your question, you're going to have a dozen people trying to help you. And it's probably because it's a small group. It's under 1,000 people right now. Of course, after this broadcast, I'm sure it's going to skyrocket, but it's a gem. It's definitely a gem.
Yeah, run by one of our panelists, Lee Jackson, who's sunning himself in Florida as we speak. I hope you're enjoying your martini, Lee. Mendel, got any suggestions about resources, online stuff that might help people about this subject?
Yeah, 3 things, and they're you guys are gonna hate me for bringing them up, but WordPress.org. There are some suggestions there on how to set up a development environment, how to get started. Also, if you visit any of the websites for tools that help you get started, I'm sure Flywheel has some information. Definitely know that Desktop Server has a blog where they talk about things, and those people, at least I know the peeps at Desktop Server are super excited to help you get through the hurdle of setting up your environment. Go to your local WordPress meetup. There will be people there that will be able to help you. So that's not online, but in person. And then also WordCamps with a contribution day. There's no better way to set up a development environment than to go to your first contribution day at a WordCamp and get set up. And the 1-2 punch there is that you'll also then be set up to contribute back to the project. So
yeah, I think that was great stuff, Mendel, especially Desktop Server, because they are a really helpful crew, and they do have some great stuff on their website about getting started up, and it's all authoritative voice. You know, you're not going to get rubbish advice from there. And Sally, got any resources?
Well, I think people have covered a lot of them, but if you do want to get into working with the Genesis theme framework, there is a Genesis Slack channel run by Sridhar Katakam, and he also has a great tutorial website that I'm happy to pay for because I've used a lot of his tutorials for client work. And so there are resources there. And yeah, I mean, you know, the WordPress Codex is not really easy to go through, but there is nevertheless a lot of good information there. And, you know, there are things you're going to want to refer back to. And, you know, don't be as resistant as I was to learning PHP, because if I just given up and said, yes, I need to learn PHP, let me go like to lynda.com and check out their intro PHP course. You know, 4 years before I did, my life would have been much easier.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Well, panel, I think we've had a great discussion. I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to ask how people can get hold of you. And I'm going to start with Sally. How can the audience get hold of you, Sally?
All right. You can find my website at WPFangirl.com, and I blog there intermittently. And you can find my meetup at eastbaywp.com. And you can find me at Sally Getch on Twitter. And if you can spell my name, you can find all of me everywhere because there's only one of me in Google. Yeah,
very useful that is, isn't it? Mendel, how can people get hold of you?
So I'm at If You Will It, ifyouwillit.com. If You Will It on everything there is on the internet. See, I didn't do a say read that time. I didn't say all the things. You can also check out the project I'm working on at godaddy.com/pro. And one other quick plug, Camp Press is coming up in 2 months. It's going to be super awesome, disconnected experience for developers, creatives, geeks of all types. We have a pretty eclectic crew, people coming from as far away as Germany. So you can check that out at camp.press. it'll be rad.
Oh, thanks for that, Mendel. Adam, how can people get hold of you?
Sure, you can check out any of my video content, youtube.com/WPCrafter. I just did a series on security plugins, and you might find some surprising things. Some of those popular security plugins are slowing your site down big time. But my website as well is WPCrafter.com.
Yeah, I really like the security videos. I remarked on one of them, didn't I? I think you were spot on with the core of your remarks. Really loved the stuff. John, how can people get hold of you?
Well, you can find me at my website, which is lockdowndesign.com. You can also follow me on Twitter, lockdown_, or go like my Facebook page. Just search for Lockdown Design on Facebook. And how do people get a hold of you, Jonathan?
Oh, thanks, John. It's really easy, folks. You can get me on Twitter at Jonathan Denwood. You can email me at jonathan@wp-tonic.com, or you can remark on the Facebook page. All the videos of the live shows are on there, and you can watch the episodes live on the Facebook. It's really easy to get to that. The links are all over the WP-Tonic page. So if you're around, you can watch us live and comment. I just want to say to the panel, thank you so much for today's input. I think it's been another great show. We've covered a lot of material in around 10 hours. It's quite amazing how much we covered. Folks, if you want to support the show, please give us a review on iTunes. It really does help the show. And iTunes seem to take a lot of notice about reviews and getting them on a regular basis. The numbers are growing, and I think we're producing some great stuff. So we'll see you next week for another great WP-Tonic show. See you later, folks. Bye.
Bye.